What's up, YouTube? Hope y'all are doing well. Let's talk about EVs. This topic has come up a couple times, and so I figured I would just share my thoughts on it, and we'd just get into it, right? So I'll get into some of the basic thoughts on EVs, the concerns, whatever, and then later in the video, unfortunately, we'll get into some of the darker aspects of the EV industry and whatnot, because we have to do that, right? It's out there. But I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not anti-EV. When I was like a little kid, I always thought, why are there no EVs? Like, why don't we have more electric vehicles? Is it a conspiracy? What's going on? You know, and there was a few things that I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware that in the 1900s, early 1900s, we actually had electric vehicles. And there was quite a debate at that time, just like there is today. And internal combustion engines won out. And that's what we've pretty much had ever since. But I'm not going to get into that today, but it's an interesting line of research. If you weren't aware, the EVs were around, and then they've been a thing. Now batteries have gotten a lot better over time. So, but yeah, not anti-EV, just trying to be realistic here. And I'll also say this: the first time I rode in a Tesla, I was impressed. The takeoff on those things, the acceleration, is something else. It's impressive. And I'm interested in that, and I'm interested to see where that goes. I don't like the way EVs have been built. I think we can build an EV that's not like a smartphone. That would be great, and I think there's a lot of potential there, and they have a place. But can they replace internal combustion engines? You know, that's what we have to consider. And this is the idea that's out there, that by 2050 there will be no internal combustion engine vehicles being sold. It'll all be EVs, and that's going to be great for the environment, and it's going to save the world, and all this different stuff, right? That's the claims, and so that's what we have to consider. You know, I'm all for having options. I like having options, and I like having EVs and internal combustion engines on the road together or whatever. But yeah, can we completely replace internal combustion engine? Is that viable? That's the kind of things I want to look into. So currently, according to Edmunds, there's the EVs make up 1% of the vehicles on the road today in America, and out of that 1% of the EVs that are on the road today, 25% are in California. Not surprising. Fun fact, the state with the most power grid failures is California. So, state with most power grid failures has the most vehicles that rely on the power grid. Just throwing that out there. So if I had concerns about the EVs, one of the first concerns would be that. It'd be just that, the reliance on the power grid to charge your vehicle, right? We have a little bit of, it's good to have options when things go wrong, and we have that right now with gasoline engines, because I can store gasoline at my house, and if the power goes out, I can use that gasoline not only to run a generator, but I can use it in my vehicle so that I can go for emergencies, you know. And enough gasoline can be stored in a small container to get me a pretty long distance. You don't really have that with EVs, you know. You just don't really have that with EVs, and I think that's an issue. And the power grid does fail. It has a lot of issues. I'm in North Carolina, is where I live right now, and even here we have these above ground power lines with pine trees surrounding them. Now I don't know why they allowed this, but the pine trees surround them, and they get pretty tall. They get like twice as tall as the power lines, and they tend to fall down in storms. And we have seasonal storms here in North Carolina, so you can pretty much predict that there's going to be some levels of power grid failure, power outages, if you will, every year. I mean, it happens to me 2 or 3 times here a year. So when that happens, what's gonna be the case if your EV is not fully charged yet and you need to go somewhere or whatever? You know, there's concerns with that. So just kind of let you think about those things. Another concern is is cold weather. EVs don't do very well in cold weather, and we have a lot of places on this planet where the weather's not, it's not tropical, right? It gets cold. So, what are those places going to do? The batteries just don't hold up to the whole cold weather. Now, this could change. Battery technology could change, but it's kind of a commonality around batteries in general that they don't tend to do as well in cold weather, right? And so also we have to heat the vehicle because we as humans can't stand the cold weather either, right? So you have to have a heater, and this just takes more power, and your range goes way down, and sometimes they've been known to actually completely fail and be inoperable. Now you're stranded, and that's not good either in extreme weather, right? So that's something to consider. Another thing to consider is the fires, right? EV fires. Now, before you flame me on this, because I know the internet could go there, and the argument would be gasoline fires are way more prevalent than EV fires, and that may be true, even considering the numbers and everything. Although I think 1% is not a very good representation and not a very good representative sample to do that research. I'll go with you. All right, gasoline fires more prevalent than EV fires. Cool. The thing about it is the EV fires are a different animal altogether. They're like really hard to put out. If you don't believe me, go ask your local fire department, right? It just takes a lot of resources to put them out. They can reignite, and they get super, super, super hot, which can be very destructive depending on where the car is parked. If it's in a parking deck, if it's in a garage, things like that. If it's stuck in traffic, we have to consider those things, right? And then you have the high voltage situation, right? The fact that, the voltage is way higher on electric vehicles than it is on a standard internal combustion engine vehicle. And this can be dangerous to not only, like firefighters and whatnot, but other first responders. Say the vehicle's wrecked. Say the vehicle it's in a ditch. Maybe there's water in the ditch. Maybe it's raining, right? And we don't, things break in wrecks. So all the things that are built to control and harness that voltage, they may not be functioning properly. So this puts first responders in a very, very precarious position when they need to get in and they need to help that individual in and around that car, right? So that's something to consider. It's something that I've thought, like, that's a potential hazard for sure, right? And we need to, and it's going to change things as to how things are done on the side of the road, right? So I'm not saying internal combustion engines are perfect. I'm just saying there are issues that need to be worked on, right, with the EVs. Because I like my internal combustion engines, but I know, that this is where the government wants to go, and this is where everybody wants to go. Okay, we want to, 100% EVs. Well, this is stuff you're going to have to consider, right? What else? Let's get into the batteries. So the reason EVs are prevalent today, they've had a resurgence, is battery technology. The lithium-ion batteries, they allow for more for more compact batteries that have a longer lifespan and all this, and they can charge and discharge at certain rates, and that allows the EVs to do more than what they could do before when we were just using like arrays of lead-acid batteries to try to create an EV power bank or whatever. So this has allowed car manufacturers to legitimately create EVs that are being used on the road today. So in a way that's good. Like, I think EVs have their place. So the downside comes in the manufacturing of these batteries. Now, lithium is very prevalent on the earth. It's found everywhere or whatever. Maybe not everywhere, but it's abundant. So that's good. However, to extract the lithium is a different story. and it has its toll on the environment. Now, keep in mind, these EVs are being said to be environmentally friendly. That's the argument, that they're going to save the environment. I mean, that's what the propaganda has said for years. And so just keep that in mind. So the lithium, a lot of it comes from what's called the Lithium Triangle. It's down in South America. It's like 3 countries down there. I think it's Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina. And in those areas where they extract the lithium, one of the concerns is they're already dry areas, like desert-like areas, and there's people that live there, and there's wildlife in those areas, but there's not a lot of fresh water. And they pump the brine up from underneath the ground and whatever. They pump it in these pools and they evaporate the water, and then they get the lithium. So it's all well and good. And after that, it needs to be extracted. It needs to be cleaned up, basically, and refined. And that refinement process takes a lot of fresh water. And they use up the fresh water from those locations. And, some of the people that are living in those locations, been living there for hundreds of years, are concerned that they're not going to be able to live the way they've, lived. It's basically taking their livelihood away from them. And, and there's other damages that can be done to the environment from the lithium extraction as well. But look that up. Look into it, It's not necessarily all good for the environment. And I could go into the lithium thing even more. There's actually going to be, I think Tesla did a deal with a company that's going to be doing lithium extractions here in North Carolina, in Gaston County. And I think they might have gotten approved last couple of days. They probably need some more approvals and whatnot. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know the style of extraction that they're going to use. I don't know the ins and outs and what's going to be the impact there. But I will be looking into that. But the lithium-ion batteries, they also have other minerals and whatnot that constitute the batteries, and you need those, right? And they come from somewhere. So one of the other ones, and this gets kind of concerning. This is where it gets dark, guys. Is cobalt. Now, over 70% of the world's cobalt production is done in a place called the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC. Sounds like a wonderful place, right? Anyway, that's where that production of cobalt mostly takes place. And there's different levels of production, and I mean different levels from all the way down to people with their bare hands, shovels, and picks mining for this cobalt, all the way up to, massive quarries where front end loaders and all this and are doing the extraction or doing the mining. Okay, but here's where it gets crazy. The hand extraction is called artisanal mining, and it sounds, or artisanal, whatever. Might not be saying it right, but it sounds like not so bad. Here's the thing, and then it's gonna get kind of dark quick. But first of all, it's individuals in there without a lot of protection, and there are bad byproducts that occur from the cobalt mining. One of them being like airborne uranium. So this can cause, obviously birth defects, all kinds of issues. You can look into that. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but I mean, and that's not the only byproduct. Obviously, there's runoff from these mines, and it gets into the groundwater and into the ground soil and the surrounding areas. The companies that do the mining have been known to kick out people from their dwellings to expand the mines. They've even burned down the houses or destroyed the houses so that people couldn't come back, intimidated them, used violence, whatever, to get their way. But the worst part of all this is they use child labor. And I'm just going to go ahead and call it what it is. It's like slave labor, essentially. And tens of thousands of children being used in these mines. Now there's going to be a lot of propaganda to try to cover that up, but don't be fooled. They're still doing it, and it's impossible to differentiate the source of your cobalt that's coming from the DRC, because the refining process is done, and the sources for the cobalt that's refined comes from all of these different sources. So it may come from a more, standardized operation, or it could come from these artisanal, basically slave labor, or some of them are getting paid. It's not all like slave labor, but the child labor thing, putting them in these dangerous situations where there's like all kinds of hazard to their health. That's not good. It's not good, and our demand for EVs is being pushed by our own government, is increasing the demand for cobalt, and it's decreasing these, or it's increasing rather, these operations, and the greed that goes along with it, right? And it's not good for the environment either. It's not good for the environment either. These areas where these mines are being absolutely decimated. You can look all this up. I'm not making it up, but that's how the batteries are made. Now, in the future, can battery technology be improved? Can they use different materials? Can we change the way the refining process is being done? I hope so. Absolutely hope so. And then we can move forward from there. But as of right now, I don't think it's a good idea to replace internal combustion engines with EVs 100%. I think EVs have their place, maybe running around town, short range stuff. We didn't really even get into the range issue, but that is an issue. And I think they might have their place. But this video is running long, so I'm going to kind of cut it short here. I will put a couple links for resources in the description below. And if it comes to it, I'll do another video with like a lot of resources, just showing all the stuff, because I really didn't even scratch the surface of this thing, really. But that's that, man. That's my take on it, and some of the concerns that I personally have regarding EVs replacing internal combustion engines. And so it's not all just because I like my old gasoline cars and that I'm some kind of, that I don't like new technology and whatnot. It has nothing to do with it, really. I think there's actual genuine concerns, and I do not think these things are environmentally friendly one bit. They have zero emissions when they're running, but that's it. Oh, and we didn't even get into the electromagnetic radiation. Being in the actual electric vehicle for extended periods of time can actually potentially have damaging effects to the body. So maybe we'll get into that in the future. But I'm gonna cut this video short because it already went way longer than I thought it was gonna go. Look up some of this stuff, guys. I want to hear from you in the comments what your thoughts are on this. But we're gonna send it like this. And until next time, I appreciate each and every single one of you all. Take care. I'm out.